All right, hey guys. Since I covered the Bad Bunny halftime show yesterday, making a bold and sweeping statement that a Christian cannot listen to Bad Bunny, obviously, because of the content of his music, I thought it would only be fair if I respond to some of the feedback that I got regarding the TPUSA halftime show and Kid Rock. So that's what I'm going to do in this video. First of all, I made the comment during my Bad Bunny video that I did not see any of the halftime show. I didn't see either one, but I had not watched the TPUSA one. I'd only seen a reel where Kid Rock was like singing a gospel song basically and telling people they need to pick up their Bible and whatnot. And I said, hey, as far as I know, this guy is a Christian. He has professed Christ, and I looked it up today, and as of February of last year, he was on Joe Rogan professing Jesus Christ. So, we're at a year now of him, to my knowledge, being a public confessor of Jesus. However, that doesn't mean that everything he does is Christ-like. That doesn't even mean that he should be given a platform to talk about Christ. And I'm going to get into that a little bit and why I think we as Christians can get ourselves into trouble when we try to put people on a platform who are not ready. So first, let me address the TPUSA halftime show. I listened to it earlier today while I was driving, and I saw one of the comments on YouTube that said, this sounds like a Ford commercial. And I mean, it was funny because, truck commercials use country songs. This was a mostly country concert, so that makes sense. It's on brand. The TPUSA halftime show, to my knowledge, was supposed to be an alternate halftime show to push back against Bad Bunny for several reasons. His music is far from family friendly. He was wearing a dress at one point, just promoting values that we don't believe in, we don't stand for. Typically as conservatives, definitely as Christians. Now, I want to make another statement. Turning Point is not a Christian organization. It was led by Charlie Kirk, who was a Christian, and TPUSA Faith was created to be a faith-specific arm of that organization. This is where things could get muddy in organizations, is because you have things that Turning Point does and you have stuff that TPUSA Faith does. And so Turning Point might do stuff that Faith wouldn't, and vice versa. And that's where it can get confusing because, Charlie was a great evangelist of the gospel of Christ, and he's out here preaching about Christ. But then you have, worldly, secular people performing, and sometimes their content is worldly and secular, and so it can leave you scratching your head going, well, what is this really about? And so I want to just come on here and say, I fully understand, and I fully understand the pushback. Let me initiate with comments about Kid Rock and he's got a song, I mentioned it yesterday, but he's got a song talking about underage girls, and I said, that's despicable. I said, that's absolutely despicable. Now, it's not an excuse, but it is worth noting that that is a song from his past before he met Christ. And so while we don't overlook what people have done, because, if you are promoting or endorsing or have participated in anything with children underage, like that is disgusting. It's wicked. To sing about it, to make money off of songs promoting it. Again, the line was like, some say it's statutory, I say it's mandatory, talking about underage girls explicitly. That is absolutely friggin' disgusting. I will say this, and unbelievers will get offended by it, and even some Christians might get offended by it. When you come to Christ and become a new person, you look back on your old self, you should, and you go, oh my gosh, I was so blind. Like, I can't believe, like myself, when I encountered God, and I was so convicted of the life that I was living, the way that I used people, the way that I was so prideful. Now, I thank God that I didn't get into anything like that. I didn't do anything criminal. I wasn't wicked according to the world standards, but according to the standards of the Bible, I was a wicked person. I was perverse. I looked at pornography. I slept around. I drank and partied, and I gossiped, and I did all those things, and those are wicked in the eyes of God. But then there's like another standard of wicked that people have great issue with, as they should, and it's anything regarding minors and underage, especially in the age we are right now with all of the Epstein stuff coming out. So I just say that to say I understand people's sensitivity. I understand people bringing up Kid Rock's past. And, just because you get born again, just because you become a Christian doesn't mean you don't have earthly consequences. So if anything ever came of that, where it was more than just a disgusting song, but maybe he did something illegal, he should pay the price for that. However, we thank God that he has forgiven our sin and can give us a new heart and can give us salvation, ultimately spending eternity with him. That is really the scandal of the cross, is like Jesus died for the sins of the whole world, even people who hate him. That's what's incredible about the forgiveness of God. So it doesn't redeem you of your earthly consequence. It redeems you of spiritual damnation. So I just want to make those two clear. We don't excuse sin, but anyone who's a Christian should understand that people are going to be very different when they're in the world. In fact, we should expect worldly people to live worldly, and that's why we pray they come to the knowledge of Christ. With that being said, what we hope to see from a Christian is that they turn away from the old ways and they begin to walk in the new ways. Now, this is a process called sanctification, and look, don't leave the video yet, because I'm going somewhere with this. I'm going to teach you something if you didn't know. Sanctification is like the process of being set apart, the process of working out your salvation. Now, this becomes an issue when people are doing this in public. People who have a very public spotlight or platform, you're watching them, be sanctified in front of everyone. And we pray that they become more and more like Christ every day. And that's our goal as Christians. We want to be more and more like Jesus. But I just want you to imagine if someone put a video camera on you from the day that you confessed Christ until now. Have you made mistakes along the way? Have you said things you wish you hadn't said? Have you done things you wish you hadn't done? Now imagine the whole world saw it. That's what some of these people are experiencing who are giving their lives to Christ, like Kid Rock, like who's the tattoo makeup, Kat Von D, like any of these OnlyFans people who come out, like any other famous person who gives their life to Christ. You watch them on a public scale as they start to talk about Christ, as they talk about their transformation. Now, they don't do everything perfectly. None of us do. But I think actually we are setting people up for failure when we give them a platform to talk about Christ when they are new babes in the faith, as Paul would say. And here's why. Someone rightly pointed out, and I saw this morning in a comment, they said, yeah, well, if Kid Rock is a Christian, then why don't you go look at his Instagram post from April? So I said, okay. Now, February, he's on Joe Rogan talking about Jesus and all this stuff. Well, 2 months later, in April, he's in a video flipping the camera off in a hot tub with a topless OnlyFans model. That is not Christ. That is not the gospel. That is not what Christians should do. That is not indicative of the narrow way. And that is very confusing for people who are hearing the gospel 1 minute and seeing the old Kid Rock the next. Now, I'm not excusing the behavior. I'm saying this is a problem when you put someone in a public spotlight who is, a new confessing Christian. You haven't given them time to establish themselves, to find out, are they really in the faith? Is this a seed that's going to be plucked by the trials of life or temptation, as the parable of the sower would say? Is this a seed that was scattered on rocky ground and it never takes root? Or is this a seed scattered on good soil and eventually it's going to produce fruit? We need to give it time. And so I think it can actually be dangerous and counter to the faith when we promote people to the place of a platform to talk about Jesus when we have not given them time to show the fruit of their lives, not just what's coming out of their mouth. Because I'm grateful. And the parable of the sower says that there are people who receive the word with joy. They're excited to come to Jesus. They're excited to start a new life. And yet the deceitfulness of riches and the pursuit of worldly things and the trials of life can choke the word out. You are doing someone a disservice if you put them in a spotlight the moment you believe a seed has been sown before you find out what that seed is. This is why it is difficult for someone to hear Kid Rock talking about Jesus and then he's in a hot tub with a naked OnlyFans model and he's flipping the camera off and he's singing about alcohol and a bunch of other stuff. I 100% understand the scrutiny there. And I will just say it plainly, I don't think he was a good person to platform. I think it sends mixed messages. Let me skip to the halftime show. The reason I told you that story is because people are blaming Kid Rock for his past, and as Christians, we want to say, no, look at who they are now. But then when you look at his recent behavior, it still looks like some of the old him. So we flip to the halftime show. Kid Rock opened with Ba Wada Ba. I don't understand this piece right here, because then he followed it up with a Christian song where he basically is sharing the gospel. He's telling people to turn to Jesus, to pick up their Bibles. This is why it's extremely problematic, because he just got done singing the song, and here are the lyrics. And again, I'm doing this because I'm fair across the board. I don't care who it offends. I talked about Bad Bunny's lyrics. I'm talking about Kid Rock's lyrics now. The midnight glancers and the topless dancers. The G's with the 40s and the chicks with the beepers. Northern Lights, Southern Comfort, that's a liquor. It don't even matter if their veins are punctured. Talking about drugs. All the crackheads, critics, cynics, all my heroes at the methadone clinics. Bastards at the IRS, crooked cops. Shots of Jack and caps of meth, half pints of love and the fifths of stress for all the hookers tricking out in Hollywood. Is this the alternative halftime show that was supposed to be pushing back against the perversion of Bad Bunny? Let's keep going. That was only verse 1. Verse 2, gangs getting money in the heads, they bang bang, wild Mustangs, porno flicks. All my homies in the county in cell block 6, the grits when there ain't enough eggs to cook, and for DB Cooper and the money he took. What is this? What are these lyrics? We're singing about drugs, injecting drugs. We're talking about liquor. We're talking about gangs. We're talking about shooting. We're talking about porn. And so this is the alternate halftime show. And then right after this, you're going to go tell people they need to pick up their Bible. And so people said, well, it was a demonstration of who Kid Rock used to be and who he is now. I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that. You don't share your testimony by displaying who you were. You don't tell your testimony by going out there and trying to get 20 million people to sing along with you as you sing about these worldly things. That song written in the same time era as the song about the underage girls. Why didn't he sing that one? I don't understand it at all. I think it was a huge miss. I think that when we try to win the world using the world, we're going to fail. And I am mostly concerned, and let me finish with this. If it was just a purely secular concert, whatever, dude. I mean, I wouldn't like it, but whatever. The problem is when you are going to allow someone to come up here and talk about all of these horrible things 1 minute, and then literally 3 minutes later be talking about Jesus Christ and pick up the Bible, that's not okay to me. we've reached a point in culture where we go, well, he confesses Jesus and he talks about Jesus and that was awesome. No, it's not awesome. And I'll tell you why it's not awesome. Because the Jesus you're confessing is not the Jesus of the Bible. You're talking about this book, but you just got done singing about porn, liquor, drugs, injecting drugs, crack. You've got pictures on your social media with topless OnlyFans models, and now you want to tell about Jesus. And anyone who is scrutinizing you to any degree is going to say, really, you're going to tell me about Jesus? I just heard your last song. I just saw your Instagram page. What kind of Jesus are you following? We're preaching a false Jesus. We're not giving them the actual gospel. But so many Christians are just fine with well, they're really famous and I used to listen to him and I just loved him. But man, praise God, he's born again and now he's talking about Christ. He's also still talking about hookers. When are we, let him walk through the sanctification process on his own. Without the platform, without the stage, because he's taking people on the journey with him. And not everyone is worth following. There's pastors out there who aren't worth following. So yeah, I'm equally frustrated, if not more frustrated with Turning Point, because you're presenting a false Christ. You are presenting a Christ that is okay sharing the stage with a song about hookers. I'm not good with that. It is a misrepresentation of the gospel. And it muddies the waters. And they knew that he was going to sing that song because he talks about how part of it was pre-recorded. There was even some belief that he was lip-syncing. I didn't look into all that. But they also planned the production and all of that stuff. They knew he was going to sing that. No one like that. I run a Christian ministry. That is never going to happen on my platform. Turning Point proper, not a faith-based ministry. It is a political activist group. That's fine. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. Have a secular country music concert. But the moment you prop someone up as though, man, this was so awesome. Kid Rock, he delivered the gospel. No, he did it on the heels of a song about all of the disgusting things, many of which Bad Bunny referenced. Would you feel the same if Bad Bunny finished his and said, you know what? Turn to Christ. It's the best decision I ever made. Pick up that dusty Bible in your room and read it every day, and you'll know Jesus like I do. And you'd say, dude, we just listened to your set. It was so perverse. What Christ are you following? Well, I'm looking at the same thing with Kid Rock. And I'm not judging. I'm not being mean. I am grateful that he is professing Christ. I'm grateful that he is bold to do it all over the place on every platform that I'm seeing. I would be more grateful if he would take a seat while the Lord sanctifies him, because you cannot preach a mixed message. You cannot preach Christ and also be singing about this. You cannot preach Christ and also be posting being naked with another chick on a video and all these worldly things. That is not the Christian way. That is not the narrow way. It is confusing people. It is creating lukewarm followers who believe that they can have their cake of the world and eat it too, with also, as long as I profess Christ, I'm good. No, I'm sorry. We have to protect the gospel. We have to present it in its entirety, and that is not just confessing Christ. It is also turning away from sin. And so, for that reason, I am very disappointed at the TPUSA halftime show. I think it was a missed opportunity. Take the gospel part out of it. And I say that as a preacher. I don't want the gospel mixed with the things of the world. It's going to confuse people, and it's not the truth. So pick one or the other. Make it a Christian performance or not. Personally, if I'm adding my opinion, I was really excited when it was going to be maybe Corey Asbury and Forrest Frank and maybe a few others. But hey, not my organization. So that's how it went down. But hope this was a fair take of both sides. Honestly, there's just so much noise happening right now. It feels like a distraction from the only thing we should be thinking about in this country, which is the Epstein files. And I will be doing a live stream on that tomorrow night with all of the updates up to this point. So if you haven't been keeping up, tomorrow night, 7:15 p.m. EST, I will be doing an Epstein update on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Shane Winnings. And we will talk about why this is something we need to not move on from, why this is something we need to contend for in the nation, what we can do about it as believers and as citizens of this country. So God bless you guys. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time.